What's up, guys, and welcome back to another Odd Popcorn for That review. I'm Chris.
And I'm Nick.
And, guys, if you're just joining this channel for the first time, we'd love it if you hit subscribe. We got videos like this coming out every week, both new movies and old movies. This is an older one today, but today we're reviewing 1977 Sorcerer by William Friedkin. Sort of in honor of William Friedkin just passing recently. But also, I just haven't seen very many William Friedkin movies. I've only ever seen The Exorcist. I don't know. Have you ever seen anything else by him other than The Exorcist?
I think so. There's like a more recent movie that he did. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I don't know offhand. I know The French Connection is a big one besides The Exorcist, and I have not seen that yet.
Yeah.
But this is like a little bit lesser talked about movie, but it kind of got like a revitalization in recent years. Just like critics kind of pointing out that it's a little bit of like an overlooked masterpiece. And man, I mean, I really liked it. I will say, I want to hear what you think about it. But for me, the beginning like 30 or 40 minutes or so, it was a little bit slow to me. Where I was kind of, or maybe not slow, but I was just wondering where this is all going. And when it does all come together, it really pays off. And I thought it was great by the end of it, and I can see why it has the acclaim that it has.
Mhm.
But it did start. It did take me a while to grab me fully. I don't know. What did you feel about this thing?
Yeah, it did for me too. Like the first hour of the movie, I just kept wondering like what is this leading to? Like it just
Mhm.
I had no idea if it was gonna gel together or what was gonna happen, but it ended up being pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the reason it's we're talking about it the way we are is like they do. Friedkin does like trust the audience to do a lot of work here, so it is just sort of presenting these little vignettes in the beginning that are like a little bit of backstory for who are going to be our main characters. And so one of them is really quick. It's just like I guess a contract killer um, executing someone in a hotel room with a silenced gun and walking out really casually like it's just a day on the job. And then another one's a few Palestinian men who like disguise themselves as Israelis or Jews and bomb a location. I actually didn't really pick up on what that spot
I think it was
was,
like a
but they're
printing
they're like
press.
okay, they're like politically motivated, I guess,
Yeah.
and then all of them they get like ambushed by the police, and all of them either get killed or two survive. One gets carted away, and he's going to prison, and one kind of gets just lost in the crowd, and so he's one of our characters. And then we've got the a man in Paris who is he German living in
No, I don't think no, he's French.
Paris, or he's just French?
He just
He's
knows
just
German.
multilingual.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he's in Paris, and he's like, you might have to fill me in on this one. Like, what is it that he's in trouble for? Like embezzling
It was
or
like fraud. I think he's
some kind of fraud
yeah, he
with like the
works he's
stock
a
exchange?
it didn't really like go too deep into it, but it was like he's a banker and there's some kind of fraud that he did that he was going to get reported for.
And I guess he's part of like a large family, and it's gonna like just make the family's gonna come crumbling down. His is like a little bit of a longer vignette out of them, but um, he has like I can think it's like his brother-in-law slash business partner, and he's trying to get him to convince his father to pay this situation off. And when he can't convince him to do that, he has this come to Jesus meeting with him and says, "You got to ask him again. He's got to do this." And the guy presumably goes off to call him again, and kills himself in the car. So he's like at wits end, runs away from the situation in all ways. Like runs away from his wife, runs away from the country, and then we have who's really our main character, Roy Scheider. He a lot of people know from Jaws or The French Connection. Um, but Roy Scheider's character is in like an Irish mob, and they rob, uh, I guess, like where a bunch of Catholic churches have sort of an underground gambling ring, and they rob this situation.
Yeah, I think
And
it was like a just where they count all the money for another mob guy.
it's something about gambling. Like
Oh, okay.
there's an angle to it. But anyway, one of the priests gets injured in the process, and he's like the brother of a rival mob in the area. So anyway, long story short, all of these people end up for one reason or another together in this Latin American. I don't know. Is it Venezuela that they say they're?
I don't know if
I got
it ever really says. Like, I don't remember
I
what the
got lost
flag
reading
was.
where they actually filmed some of this stuff, but
Yeah.
I think it's like Venezuela or something like that. But they're all like living, just shadows of their former selves, like basically living in poverty. And everything about this movie, to me, I will say, even from the beginning, regardless of, even though it took a little while for me to get really interested and invested in it, everything about this movie looks so real and lived in and authentic, and it feels like almost like a documentary or something. And a lot of shots are handheld camera,
Mhm.
and like when insane things are happening, explosions and things like that, the camera gets really shaky. But it's not like constant shaky cam or anything like that. This is the '70s, but that use of like handheld cam when it was needed, and I liked all that. But yeah, it just, and everything feels so like dirty and gross, and everybody's like sweaty and covered in like
Yeah.
motor oil. And but anyway, they all end up I guess they're working on this oil refinery. It's like an American oil refinery, or are they just nearby? I don't know. But the oil refinery ends up exploding, and we don't know if it's like an act of terror or not. I'm not sure they're clear about that, but I guess that sort of does happen around there. The bombings of these American oil refineries, and the only way to put out the fire is dynamite. And
Well,
this is where the meat of the story,
nitroglycerin, which is
which is the
why.
active ingredient in dynamite, right?
Is it? Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
I think it's just that I mean, it's dynamite, but it's like sweating nitroglycerin. So
Okay.
like
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you were to poke a hole in a box of it, like it's like dripping with nitroglycerin.
Yeah. I don't know my
But
explosives.
yeah, but so the only way they can put the fire out is with dynamite, and the dynamite is quite a ways away, like I don't know,
200 miles?
hundreds hundreds of miles, like 200 miles, over 200 miles. And you can't do it with a helicopter because this stuff's very sensitive and everything. They have to use these vehicles to do it, so they ask for volunteers, and our main four guys, well, that's not entirely true, because another guy volunteers who is a Nazi war veteran, and the contract killer guy. Uh, and this is brushed by pretty quickly, but I mean, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, it seems like the contract killer guy from the beginning uh, kills that guy because he's Jewish, and this guy's a Nazi veteran. Is that
I
what's happening
no,
there?
I don't think so. I think he just killed him because he wanted the money. I don't think he's Jewish. He was like some
Well,
kind
because the
of Latin
Palestinian guy
American.
says,
I think that's just the Palestinian guy using some slurs that he knows.
"Yeah, yeah, that's fair." But people are upset about this, but they still need a fourth driver, so they end up using the contract killer fella.
Yeah.
And so the bulk of the movie revolves around the journey to transport this dynamite in these like ramshackle together jalopy vehicles that are just, they literally have to piece them together themselves out of like the scrapyard basically.
Mhm.
So these things are barely running, and any little bump could set this thing off and cause an explosion. uh, and man, this is where the movie really kicked in and kept me interested, because it is like,
It's
from
tense.
the first moment, it is so tense. Like you're watching the tires go over like just the edge of like cliffs, sheer cliffs that just, you can see the drop off, and they do a lot with different camera angles to show you how far up you are and how high the stakes are. And man, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna pass the question to you on this, but how do they make this in the '70s? Like, are they just really putting actors at risk like this? Because there's no CGI. Obviously, it's predates CGI.
Yeah, I mean, I think
They're putting some actors in some crazy. I mean, I know a little bit about the behind the scenes about a couple things, but like when
yeah.
they're filming on the edge of a cliff and there's rocks slipping under their tires and stuff, and you can see the actor in the vehicle.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
I feel like the cliffs probably weren't up as high as they made them seem. Like maybe they showed a cliff edge of a different cliff and then showed them on like something that wasn't as high up or something maybe.
And I know, so there's a famous scene with a suspension bridge
Yeah, which
over
was
water, and it's in a storm, and it is just crazy. I mean, you just can't help but like shake your head at what you're watching because it's some really harrowing footage. I mean, this is like the worst trip ever.
yeah.
Everything is going wrong. It's like fate is, you know, it's like nature is reminding them that it's completely in control and they have no control over the situation, and there's like a hopelessness to it. Um, but the suspension bridge part, when they're driving over the suspension bridge, there actually were like hydraulics. Like that was $1 million rig where there's
Okay.
like actually hydraulics underneath that are shifting the bridge back and forth. Now the actors are in real danger, and people
Yeah.
swam a bunch, and the actors are the ones in the vehicles. Like no, I don't know if there was no um, stuntmen at all used in this movie, but there was like Roy Scheider famously said that stuntmen love this movie because they all the actors did all the stunt work. So I don't know, but a lot of things are done here that really impress the heck out of me, and there's a lot of acting to be impressed by here, but it is different than your average movie where like
Yeah.
it's not like very dialogue heavy or
That's what
very.
I was gonna
It's
say
not a
is
very
like
talky movie.
yeah, there's not outside of like the vignettes, there's not a lot of dialogue throughout the movie. And the one time we
I mean,
start to get a little dialogue, I feel like it comes to an abrupt end.
there's some very impressive like body acting
Yeah.
where actors are putting their all into this, but there's not a lot of dialogue. It feels like you could write most of the dialogue in this movie on like a couple pieces. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
not that much dialogue. But I've read afterwards that I can't, Friedkin that Friedkin said that he intended to tell a story that like that he sought out to tell a story this way with very little dialogue, and so I think he did a good job at that because you still end up feeling for the um, our main characters, and I think so. A line early on in the movie in like the third vignette with our French character. Forgot the name right now, but it's with our French character, and he's talking to his wife, and she's reading from this book that they. I don't know. I don't know if she's actually reading from the book that she's editing. I think she's reading from the book that she's editing. But it's something about a little scene about this like military commander saying, "As soon as I drop my arm, I'm commanding, for these people to just be removed from the earth with these cannons."
Mhm.
And the drop of my arm like removes this person from the earth. He sees a particular person, and our guy says, does he drop his arm? And she says, yeah, he does. And he says, oh, typical soldier, or I think he says typical soldier, something like that. And she said, just he says, just another soldier.
Mhm.
And she says, nobody's just another anything. And that stuck in my mind. And then I thought it was cool because when I was reading about this a little bit afterwards, that's William Freakin thinks of that as like the core theme of this movie is that nobody's just anything. And because our main characters here are all extremely flawed, like criminally flawed, ethically flawed in all kinds of ways. They're thrown together in this situation. They have to cooperate together, and in doing so, they kind of all have little redemption arcs here. And I don't. It is a very very old movie. I don't want to spoil the. I don't want to spoil the things that are you can spoil about this,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's something that I'm not saying that really surprised the heck out of me because of the timing of it. I thought that was super effective. Like nothing warns you that something's about to happen, and then it happens. And
Mhm.
I don't know about you. You know the scene I'm talking about,
Y-
though, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just some crazy special effects done in this for something
Yeah, that
you know
bridge
done in
scene
the '70s.
had me like very tense and I didn't know about the hydraulics part, but it's like the teetering of the truck. I'm like that thing could have fallen in that river at any moment, but I guess it was pretty
And
semi-safe.
some really impressive like practical explosions in this too
Mhm.
that you can tell are full scale, like it's not like a miniature explosion. There's a giant tree that they come across that they have to, there's no way around it. They're just completely blocked from their path, and they have to employ some of the dynamite to get rid of that tree, and that's very like all that is just done immaculately. And I kept thinking to myself, like, how did they do this long ago, and how did they do this? How would they even do this today? Like, there's
Yeah.
some stuff here that really is hard to replicate. And yeah, what are some of the things that stood out to you? If there's anything you're thinking of, because I have a couple little things of like trivia that I thought were interesting. Not many.
Yeah, I was wondering like if that rainfall was real during that scene or if it was like simulated, because it
No.
was
So,
crazy.
so there's a whole story there, but it was $1 million. The bridge setup was $1 million, and then they had to. Something happened where like the rain was unusually low that season,
Mhm.
and the water level went down to where it wasn't even an impressive visual effects shot anymore. And then like the locals revolted because they thought that it was like some kind of curse that they, or maybe not a curse, but they had like the Americans coming and putting this fake bridge here is what stopped the water.
Okay.
So they had to just move the whole thing, which ended up not working out, and they had to build a whole nother one. So another $1 million bridge set up in a different location. And then something happened there where they didn't have the high waters that they wanted. It wasn't raining, whatever. And so everything about that is fake. They had to pipe in water. They had people up on towers spraying with hoses. They
Okay.
had all kinds of things, wind machines and all kinds of contraptions set up. But that was all practical, but not natural at
Okay.
all, which is crazy because it does not. I did not think that was obvious at all.
Yeah, no.
Um, and by the way, this is I don't know if he's your favorite author, but I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say this is your favorite author's favorite movie. It's Stephen King's favorite movie,
Oh, really?
and also a couple little things. So Friedkin said that this was like one of the most demanding movies he'd ever done, and I think that's he's speaking for a lot of other people too, because
Right.
over 50 crew members had to leave due to injury, malaria, gangrene,
Jeez.
and food poisoning.
Wow. Yeah, because I mean they're in a very rural area in Southern America.
And this when you watch this movie, it feels like the kind of movie where some people probably got hurt
Yeah.
in the making of this because there's so many different like when they don't waste anything. So when they're doing that bridge shot, like a lot of time is spent on that and a lot of different angles up under the bridge and through holes in the bridge
Mhm.
and aerials and through the windshield and looking, they're really doing a lot of different types of camera work here. And I thought that's really the star of this is like the visual
Yeah.
work and the um, I really like the like minimally used, but I like the soundtrack a lot. Tangerine Dream
Mhm.
um, soundtrack, but uh, but yeah, visually this kind of stands out the most in a visual sense. And the last thing is for me anyway is that William Friedkin said that he was a little disappointed. I guess not with the final results of the movie, but like his intention was to get a big name actor for the main role. And he says that even though he thinks Roy Scheider did a good job, he's not a main leading role kind of guy, leading man,
Really?
and uh, and he thinks he is better as like a secondary character, like he was in Jaws or The French Connection. But uh, but he initially tried to get his main two choices were Clint Eastwood and Jack Nicholson, and they only weren't in this movie because they didn't want to travel at the time.
Oh, okay.
So this could have been a
But
Jack Nicholson movie or a Clint Eastwood movie, and I
that would
think
have been
either of
crazy
those
to
would have
see.
made this a huge movie.
Yeah.
But it also came out at the same. People were stoked about it, and then people were like lining up, and then Star Wars came out, the
Oh,
first Star
really?
Wars, and this was like the. It wasn't like the week that Star Wars came out. It was like the week after Star Wars came out, where every word of mouth was making it blow up like, a super nebula cloud,
Yeah.
and so nobody went and saw it. So this was actually like a financial disaster. It was like a 20
Oh,
something
dang.
$1 million movie. It made like 9 million of it back. And so it's one of those that's just like regained some popularity just among, film nerds.
Yeah.
Uh, and not much film critics and not much else. So
I'd say the
uh,
like and the name of the movie is interesting too, Sorcerer. Like it leads you to believe it's gonna have some magical element or anything, and it really I don't even know where he got the name from. It's on the side of one of the trucks, but other than that, that's the only reference to it.
That's it. And I won't even take up any time in this video telling you the answer. I'll tell. I mean, there's just nothing to it. Like
Okay.
it's basically just like William Friedkin came up with that name for one of the vehicles, and that ended up being the name for the movie.
Okay.
That's it. They named it that. You can barely see it at all in the movie, so
Yeah,
it's
you
like
see it like
you
just
could miss.
one or two times.
Yeah, you could miss the name Sorcerer appearing in this movie at all. Yeah, I mean that is like it's almost a misleading title. Like you
Yeah.
can't get any information out of that title at all. Like it tells you not, if anything, it tells you like the wrong kind of information about
Mhm.
this movie. But yeah, what else is there to say? Uh, I would definitely give the if you're gonna watch this movie, I would definitely say if you're anything like me, give it a chance and push through that first like
Definitely, yeah.
50 minutes or something because it really pays off, man. If
Yeah.
this seems like it's not super interesting in the beginning, it really ends up being, I think.
Yeah, it's
But
definitely a good movie and the ending is very good.
so what are you thinking on a number?
I think I'll probably give it like a 7.5. I ended up liking it quite a bit when I didn't think I was going to after a little while.
If it was all the way through as crazy and interesting and nail biting as it was in the middle, well, I'm not saying it needed to be that
Yeah.
full on, but I would have given it a 10. I mean, it's some amazing camera work and some amazing everything, like the set design, everything. Because it took so long to get into it, I would say like a 8.
Okay.
I give it an 8.
Yeah.
So the next movie we're talking about is Kid Detective. So that'll be coming out very shortly. And comment below if you've seen this movie before. If you haven't, comment maybe any William Friedkin movie you've seen and what you think about it, or rank William Friedkin movies if you feel so inclined and you've seen a bunch of them.
Mhm.
And yeah, and hit like if you like this kind of thing. Share it with your friends. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
We'll see ya.